Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining the Make Your Own Noise podcast. Today's guest is Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott is the drummer and singer of Australian indie surf rock band Surf Trash. In the last year alone, Surf Trash have toured the United States twice. They've just embarked on their first European tour. This is all on the back of their debut album, The Only Place I Know, going number one on the Australian charts for Australian albums, which I was really fortunate to produce here at Sonora Studios. And the big reason I wanted to have Andrew on the podcast today is not only is he a phenomenal musician, but he also is the manager of the band. The band is also completely independent, so no record deal yet. And they're doing all of these great things completely off their own back and organisation. And I think his work ethic, his drive, his focus and his vision is incredibly special and a big part of the recent success of the band. So thank you for joining us today and look forward to this conversation. I think the point I wanted to start with, like we were talking about, was why I really wanted to get you on was about with Surf Trash. Mm-hmm. You're obviously the singer and the drummer, but you guys have now toured internationally. Mm-hmm. You've had a number one ARIA record. You've done all these things. Mm-hmm. And can you maybe let our audience know about, who your manager is, who your record label is, so they know that these are all the things they need to do to get to where you are? Mm. I thought I'd set you up with that.
Yeah, right.
Got it.
Yeah, well, no record label. I am the manager. And that's literally it. We've got a few people that are doing things with us, but yeah.
Why have you chose at this point in time to still do all of that yourself when you are so busy already being the singer and drummer?
Yeah, sure. I actually don't think it was really even a decision. I think it just naturally happened over the course of time. We've had a few different people step in to do management over the years, especially when we first started out. We were so young, so I suppose we were all clueless. But it's okay to be clueless, and I realised that very early on that it wasn't about knowing everything straight away. And I think that was the thing that really led me to keep doing what I'm doing now, is that it's not about kind of just knowing everything or leaning on a lot of other people. Like, it's obviously I've got people that I lean on and that I will talk to about things from a management role.
Who are some of those people?
Who are some of those people that I will talk to? To be honest, not even other managers, like the guys that we have as distribution, like the guys at Believe. Nathan at Believe is fantastic, and Will. So I suppose I talk to them quite a lot. But most of the time, it's like anything, but I think management is a lot of like problem solving and just logistics and making things work and seeing things clear as day. And being on the ground with the group and also being a part of the group, that's very easy because there's not really a barrier between me and the band.
Yep.
And I think that's why it works so well.
Things can happen quicker.
Right.
Less barriers to get
And not
through.
that I always know what the other guys want, but a lot of the time I'm on the same wavelength as them. Like, it's very easy to understand what it is that they want or what we need or what we should strive for. So I suppose there's no kind of barrier and things can happen quickly, which I like. I think I like that control as well. And I suppose there's a lot of trial and error, but that would be the same case as if there was someone else that was managing as well.
Yep. Do you think, so a lot of the people that have been listening to the podcast are younger aspiring producers or in bands as well. So a lot of them are in the music industry.
Yeah.
Do you think it is possible to have a number one Australia ARIA record and tour overseas without having much external help like you have? Because that was one of the big reasons I wanted to get you on here, was not only, your band's doing really well and there's the artistic side we can talk about, but the thing with this podcast is it's about making your own noise, going after what you want, and you will attract good things into your life. And you guys are kind of a current living example of that.
Right. And it honestly doesn't feel like that when you are doing. It's not until, I think, later on that we will look back on, say, things that we've done or achievements or, you know, stuff recently that we kind of realize, like when you're really in the doing and you're trying to manifest everything that you want to achieve and going after things, you kind of, it's very much tunnel vision. Like a lot of the time I won't even realize where we're at or what's going on until after the fact.
Yep.
But I would say, yeah, it's definitely doable because all we have done is just, well, for one, believed in the project, believed in what we're doing, and believe in ourselves as well. And I think, as you know, as cliche as that sounds, I think it's very important. Like when we first wanted to, you know, say play overseas, the only reason that was possible is like the persistence of making that happen. There's no like, you know, you can go to people and ask about how to do things, but I think in a lot of industries, but also the music industry, a lot of cards are held very close to chest as well. Yeah. So it is hard to figure out how to do things, and there's no like one thing that will work, or there's not one way to go about things. So there was a lot of like figuring that out for yourself, but I kind of enjoy that pursuit as well. Like, and it's very rewarding once you're able to do something for the first time, or, you know, I suppose, tick a box or like go after a goal. And the funny thing is, a lot of the time we aren't really setting out those goals, or like, I think we just all know that we want to strive and do our best, and what comes from that will come from that. Which is funny because I would recommend to people to set goals, and maybe consciously I am, but we aren't really sitting down and having conversations about particular things we want to do, or I think we just are all on this weird wavelength where we kind of know what we want, and what we want to do and achieve.
And you have that tunnel vision to go after it.
I think, and it's really funny because I do believe that those, like, you can't sit back and wait for things to come to you either. That's a big thing.
Yep.
But I also believe that if you are really just driving and putting all of you into something, that those things will come along as well. I think it's a bit of both.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I think that's the big thing.
Yep.
To encourage these young bands listening, or musicians or producers or anything, that if there is something you really want to go for and you have that tunnel vision and you direct all your focus to it, good things will come. I think, you know, for you guys too, like you guys, some of you, you know, you still work part-time, but you've set up a job in life that is flexible so that when the band goes to a Europe,
I think we're shaping our lives around
the band
this as well, and purely because it's because of how passionate we are about what we do as well. And I feel like we did that from the get-go, even when things were nowhere near as busy, or on as much of a scale as it is now. I think even from the beginning, we would, you know, if there was a show, if there was something that was going to progress us in the right direction, we would drop everything and do that.
And I want to talk a bit more about the band's kind of direction in a second. But just on that point, if you were to say to a band listening and a young artist, again, or young producer or anything, how much of a percentage of your effort, time, focus of the last 4 to 5 years since Surf Trash has started has been around the band? If you were really busy doing other things, do you think, I know this is a bit of an obvious answer, but I think the reason for your band's success has been because it has been, for all of you guys, your number one priority. If you had been distracted with other things that were taking up quite a bit of mental capacity, do you think you'd be near the level where you guys are?
Definitely not.
Like, I know the music is really important, but I'm also thinking like how much work you've put in outside of just writing good songs.
That's a thing that people will never see with any group or any band, I think, is you have to make a lot of sacrifices as well. You have to make heaps of sacrifices, and if you're willing to do that, combined with the workload and just the day-to-day of always on to the next thing, I think that obviously it plays the biggest role in how much you're going to get out of a project, for sure.
Because you know they talk about, a good song is a good song, and if the song's good, that's the main thing that's important. And to some extent it is, but really, there's a huge amount that goes into it that actually helps.
There's too many factors that go into into that, like a good song's a good song, but if everyone isn't as driven as one another, it just won't work. And like you said, this band in particular, the last 5-6 years, is everyone has been just as passionate as each other. We've dedicated like 90% of our time to this one thing. Yeah. Which, once you see it, things fall into place, you realise that that's how it works. It's like I'm dedicating all this time, all this effort, all this focus, all your creative thinking and being is being put into this one thing. It's like, if you want to drive all of that to one place, yes, that's how it works.
And you said it then about 90% of your waking time and thinking is about the band,
it's the
whether
one
it's the
thing.
Music or everything else. And if it was any other way, even if your music was really good,
it's hard to know what would be. But I think that yes, things would definitely be different. And I think I heard something the other day, but like about like the first kind of like 4 or 5 years of a group, that's kind of the easiest time period to really get discouraged, and you're just wanting things to really take off. And but there's so many years behind a group before things might fall into place. Like I really haven't seen a lot of acts just shoot off, even if it's promoted or perceived that way to other people. There's a lot of groundwork, there's a lot of behind the scenes, which is a common thing, which was once I started to really see how much time and effort and planning and thinking ahead and driving, once I saw that in other scenarios, I think that made me more driven and realised, okay, I think I'm on the right track here. But also too, you have to shut out all of what you're ingesting, because things are perceived a certain way and things move quickly as well. But I think once I saw how much that really goes into successful, well, it's hard to measure, depends what metric, but I think I was seeing how much it was going to take, but I was willing to dedicate that time and effort for sure.
Because I don't think some people realise, because Surf Trash has been around, what now, about 6 years? 2018 you guys started?
Well, the idea was 2017, and I think we recorded one song in 2017, but we didn't start playing live till I think April 2018. And it was very much drop everything. I think there was someone that pulled out of a gig, and we got asked if we wanted to play, and like Jacko was down at his grandparents' place for like a family get together, and he like left the Central Coast and drove home just to play the show.
Sick.
This, so it was very much like everyone was very keen from the get-go. And
I obviously, work with a lot of bands that, some of them will probably be listening to this and they've been around a year or two so far. They're getting some streams, shows are getting a bit better, but sometimes I see the frustration and feeling like they're plateauing. Talk us through a little bit, especially when COVID hit too, at a time where you guys probably first took a jump.
Yes, it was right. It was
kind of right at that time.
It was right at that time.
Just talk us through a little bit about, let's talk about Surf Trash and just the journey you've been on so far, just to show everyone that this has been a road of, rises and plateaus and rises again. Because, some people do get discouraged, like you said, in these first few years, and they're probably closer than they think to breaking through.
Yeah, and I think we didn't really have that in the first couple of years, because we were very much still learning our instruments, still learning how to write together, and we weren't really going after... Well, it was still just a hobby, and it was still just very much fun, so we didn't have goals in mind. The project didn't feel like it was plateauing at all, because we didn't know it was something as serious as that. It was literally something we just started spending our time doing, which is really funny. But I think it is very easy more so because 5-6 years ago is a very different time to even now for musicians and for bands. So I definitely feel like people are feeling that earlier on now, just because of the speed that everything is at. It's easier than ever for groups to record. It's easier than ever for a lot of things, but it's also harder than ever purely because of how much is going on,
saturated
and how
it
is as saturated as it is, and how we're expected to promote our art and all those things that I'm not going to go on about that because everyone knows about that and how hard that is, but it's the way that everything's got to be quick, it's got to be now. It's like, but that, I think a lot of young bands don't realize all the planning and stuff, you know, before that.
Yep.
The rollout of things, everything's perceived so quickly, and that's so overwhelming, and you see other people moving at such a quick pace and all these things lining up, and then that's where the comparison comes in. Everyone's comparing themselves to, and I think that really will fatigue a project and overwhelm someone.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you said something to me the other day about that with social media and how you can portray momentum really well.
Absolutely.
Which can then, if you draw comparisons to other bands, it can discourage you.
Yeah, you're like, how do I keep up? Or how is that even possible? And it's just because of the way it's rolled out.
That's right. They might not be any busier or less busy than you. They're just better at portraying.
Right. And that's the thing with social media. It's so easy to create momentum and quickly, even if it's not necessarily there, or like, I think that's a very overwhelming thing for a new artist, and I think we not got lucky, but we weren't even paying attention to social media then, so we had nothing to latch on to or be like, we need to be doing this, doing that. We were literally like getting together and like, trying to figure out how to write songs. And I think it was really good that we started so young because we had so much time to just figure things out with no pressure at all, and then falling in love with what we were doing. I think it was just very much an organic and natural process, and I think we got lucky, and it was at a time where obviously the people and bands were promoting themselves through social media 6 or 7 years ago, but nowhere near as similar to what is going on now, or the level of now. So I think we kind of just snuck through that time of just really focusing on what we were doing.
I was going to say, I think you guys...
I think it helped us.
I think you guys and I don't know because I'm not a social media guru, but I feel like the last few years has been a big jump, a bit before, maybe like, the late 2010s, like 2017 to 2019. Social media was very important by all means, but for bands like yourself, which are a live band...
Yeah, it wasn't as crucial.
No, and it grew because of vibe and size of shows and good performances. And now it feels like it kind of needs a mixture of both. So it is cool that you guys grew up in that time still.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing too that's important for people that are playing now and that are in the early stages is like, it's such an overlooked thing, like playing live shows or connecting with an audience. It's right in front of you, but that's something that social media can't really do. Is it like getting out in front of an audience and talking and meeting real people is like, that is always going to be more beneficial to an act, no matter if you're a pop artist, if you're a live band. I really think it's overlooked.
Yeah.
And we're constantly reminding ourselves of that now. Like obviously we use social media to promote the project and what we're doing and stuff. But you have to keep it authentic and authentic to who you guys are.
And you guys do it all yourself, don't you?
Yeah,
no one manages your social media.
No, it's all me. I think the guys will jump on every so often.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think I would use social media if it wasn't for the band or for work. And I've just had to kind of learn or just figure things out. I think I still don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you've never studied this online marketing or anything like that. It's trial and error.
No, it's just trial and error, and maybe we are still doing it wrong. Who knows?
Yeah.
I do know how to keep it authentic to us, though, and I think that's probably an important thing. And people are so worried about doing things a particular way or like someone else. It's like you should just figure out what works for you, and I think that's another important point.
I must admit, and it's exactly on that point, from the bands I've worked with, the ones that say are on the more successful side in terms of size and that at the moment,
sure,
most of those have tended to be the style of bands that not their music, just in terms of their whole approach to recording, their social media, everything is they really don't care what other people think, and they just do what they want to do. Not in a I don't give a fuck way, and they're being...
But they're not just writing their music with an audience in mind, all that. And I think, that's...
You guys are like that. I've noticed a lot in the studio. The Terrys are like that a lot. They just do what vibes with them. Well, sometimes I have bands where the music is great, by all means, but they go, what do you think, like, we need to change to get on Triple J? Or, you know, how do you get this and that? And as soon as you start thinking that way...
Yeah, or just thinking that far ahead, it's like you can't predict any of that stuff. All you should focus on is how it sounds and how it feels.
Yes.
And consistently doing that is super important, for sure.
Because as soon as you try and copy someone else, you're always going to be second place to that band. You're not gonna mimic Ocean Alley and then do it better. They are Ocean Alley.
Yeah.
So you've always got to try do your own thing, and I think that's what resonates with people, the authenticity.
Yeah. And obviously it's great to be inspired by other artists, and all music now is being pulled from music before it. That's the whole thing about music. Like, there's so many bands and artists and writers and stuff that inspire us, but I think it's about bringing all that inspiration into your own world and making it work, and not trying to go after a particular thing, or just not writing with an audience in mind, or go off feeling and that kind of thing. If it makes you feel a particular way, it might make someone else feel completely different. It's all open to interpretation as well. Like, I think that's the coolest thing about writing music, is it'll mean one thing to me and could mean 100 other things to 100 other people.
Yep.
And the fact that it gets to be heard and ingested by 100 other people is fucking cool. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what people... Yeah, I think you gotta shut that out, which is very hard to do, because, like... And people do music for different reasons. Maybe people do, like, that's what they're after. They want to get played on the radio, or everyone's, I suppose, intentions are different as well. So, yeah. It's easy for it, but obviously getting played on radio and that kind of thing, that stuff's cool when it's very exciting, you know, being played on the radio for the first time as well. But I think it's important when you're in the stage of creating the music or what it is you're doing, that you are just thinking about yourself.
And what excites you.
Yeah, and what excites you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a moment... and I would probably say it was pre-COVID. Was there a moment where you noticed a bit of a shift in the band, where you just went from kind of writing music to going, oh, people are noticing this? Was there a particular moment?
There probably was, but it's honestly I'm so bad at remembering. Like, there's certain things that stick out and there's things that just not there anymore. And I can't remember a particular moment, and there probably was, but I think we just kind of... I think we started playing in major cities and noticed that people were coming to the shows, or maybe that there was a few more people listening to the songs that were released, that kind of thing. But it was probably just that, and a consistency of that, and it slowly increasing. Like, there was no big boom, like that never happened, and I'm glad that wasn't the case anyway, because we've been able to just chip away at things and see a steady growth is great. Like, that's what you want. You don't want to go boom and then feel an overwhelming amount of pressure, and then, you know, plateau, or things get too hectic, or, you know, like, a natural growth over the time is great. I can't remember a particular moment, but I'd say it would be just starting to play our own shows rather than support slots and that kind of thing, and being able to play up and down kind of the East Coast, and just recording music, and then noticing that a couple of people were listening, and that was like, oh, cool, like, that's cool.
All right, was there ever a moment, it might have been through COVID, which might have been the same for many other bands, or might have been before or after, was there ever a moment where the momentum halted for quite a bit for the band, and you thought Surf Trash might be done? Not your musical endeavours, but you thought you would say quite demotivated in the project.
Yeah,
I thought it might have hit a point.
I was writing a lot of music in COVID, with Pat.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily surf trash stuff. It was just we were writing a lot of music together and connecting in that way. And I think because we were writing so much stuff that probably wasn't surf trash stuff, I probably thought that it was going to be hard to jump back into surf trash stuff and writing. And I was like, and all those songs were coming quite naturally, and it was feeling really good. And I was maybe worried that we weren't going to be able to do that with the band again. Is have that. So maybe in that way, but I think during COVID we noticed more people. Well, I think everyone was just listening to more music. That's all you could. You couldn't go and watch a band, but you could still listen to their music.
Yeah.
So we probably noticed a lot, like the 3 songs that we had done with you just before COVID. 2 of them had already been released, and we're noticing more and more people listening to those during that period. And then during that kind of year where we weren't able to do much, we put out the 3rd song.
Yes.
As well, and that did really well, and that was the first thing we'd done in a while. So I suppose that probably, and seeing that people were still listening, even though from our perspective it's like you can't do anything, you can't interact with your audience, you're trying to do like those live stream festivals that different brands and stuff are doing that, and we're like in our living room like trying to play rock and roll quietly. It's like all these weird things that you'd never imagine were happening, and that made you feel distant to the thing that you really wanted to be doing.
Yeah.
It didn't feel the same at all. So I suppose that felt quite deflating.
Yeah.
And it felt worlds away from what we wanted to be doing. And then I think releasing another song during that time period where that's all we could really do, and seeing that people still cared was great.
Yeah.
And then I think we just didn't even think about it too much, and we're just straight
Kept
back into
going.
Yeah, so not overly, and we were like, my personal time in COVID was quite good, where for others it was probably not so good. Like, it was a very mixed bag here in Australia. Like, all I could do is write music and fish and
and surf,
which I was so grateful to be able to still do. A quick funny story is one of our friends who lives a couple hours north of us, it was actually down for the weekend to visit us. And during that time, the whole bubble stay in your own zone thing happened, and he lived with us for 3 months. And all we did was drink beers, fish, surf, and we set up in our rehearsal space a live jam, and we're just jamming all day long.
Sick.
And I think the best thing about that was that it wasn't directly ST stuff. It was just, we were just writing and playing music, and you're like, this is so sick, because you've never had that much free time to dedicate to doing that. So that was so fun. You're kind of living in a fantasy world almost, where it's all I have to do today is get up and fish and play. Yeah, I may have bought a couple of guitars during COVID, actually. Because what else was there to do?
I know.
So yeah, that time period was a real weird one, because it steered away from my love and passion of this project. But I was still enjoying music and creating and things, and then it was hard to connect the dots back to that project and feeling inspired, particularly for surf trash.
And
as well.
What do you think reignited that inspiration post that period, when you did feel a bit uninspired or disconnected from surf trash? What do you think helped you re-engage with that?
I really don't know. Maybe just each other, just kind of the drive and the love that we all have together and for each other. Maybe.
I like that.
Yeah, I know that sounds funny, but
no, I like that.
I think that was simply just that. There was no, all right, we need to do. It was we were still, and still to this day, we spend quite a lot of time together, surprisingly, outside of band things.
You don't get sick of each other?
You don't choose those kind of people, though. That just happens, and that was an important thing even before the music and before touring and before working as well.
How do you guys go on tour? Hanging out?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
There's never been any kind of, you spend 10 hours in a van together traveling from one city to another. I remember getting to Chicago and we spent 10 or 11 hours straight in the van. And not everyone's all chirpy and chatting along to each other. There might be some people that's reading a book, someone's trying to sleep, someone's listening to podcasts, to maybe mucking around and trying to like annoy one another or other people, and the vibe's quite stale.
Yeah.
You get out of the van, everyone rolls in, you're tired as you do loading, sound check, and then an hour before the show, everyone's back. You're right back where you started. So yeah, we go like we're having a blast on the road. Like there's no reason for us to not be having a good time and enjoying each other's company. We're doing things we never thought we'd get to do. You're experiencing new places. You're getting to play your music to people, meet cool people all over the world. Like those are things that, one, you can only dream of and hope that you get to do one day. And two, you're getting to do it with your best mates. It's like any other shit just gets put, you know. And obviously there's going to be times when, yeah, everyone's quite tired and fatigued and you're keen to get home and just like put the feet up for a little bit, or you're keen to see other friends. You know, it's a four-way marriage in a way, like, and you're spending long periods of time together. I've spent more time with the same three dudes than I have with anyone else in my life, which is
probably your own partner even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of the time, Yaz is keen to come on the road. I'm like, are you sure? Like, but that's right. You spend all this time together, and if it's still working out now, and we still have that bond now, I think that's great, and that's important too.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all have lives outside of this. Unexpectedly, we do. There's still stuff outside of band.
For people listening, on that, like, I always have people asking me, both in the industry and not, the size of bands, and like, are those guys still working? Not Surf Trash specifically, but they're asking me about bands and if I know if they work. Like, if it's not too personal, for the record, all of you guys are still working part-time or full-time outside of the band when you're not touring, right? Right,
absolutely. And I think majority of people are. I'll quickly go through what everyone does because it's quite funny. But Jacko and Nick have just finally finished uni, which has been such a journey, like them studying while the band's been chipping away, especially
recording albums.
There's been a lot of like trying to get out of exams and all sorts of things. I remember like in America, Nick was doing exams on the laptop, like in the back of a
tour bus,
a transit van, like going through the desert, and he's like trying to get internet and like just scrummeting around trying to get stuff done, and you're like, such a funny scenario for him. But I really proud of them to be able to push through and do something like that. Like the juggling act's insane. Anyway, they've both just finished uni. Nick's a primary school teacher, and he's casual teaching at the moment. Two very different worlds.
Yes.
Jacko is a physio. Pat has actually just started uni, and he is studying environmental science, but works in that industry, like asbestos, air and soil testing, all that kind of stuff. And then I have worked as a teacher's aide, SLSO, over the last few years. Went from full time to part time, and now I'm just casual. So.
And you're managing the band, which is a lot of your time.
That's 90% of my time. I'm moving further and further. I'm very close to only just doing this now. Like, I'm kind of averaging 4 or 5 days work in the school a month. Is kind of, because when we're not on the road, obviously I've still got a lot to do day to day, every day, all day. So we are all juggling this as well as the group, and so many people that I only know a few people in my friendship or muso circle that aren't working. And they're not even here in Australia actually. And
there's not many bands I've come across that don't have some kind of other income externally, yet there's only been a few of the really big ones,
of course,
which is their full-time thing.
I
think that's saying too, to note, like,
it's good to have two. I think it's actually really good to, like, obviously studying, working and doing band is such a juggle for the guys now, where they don't have to worry about studying, they're just working outside of this as well. I think it's good.
And I think that hearing that for other bands listening, that to not be discouraged that they are still doing their other job and things.
No.
But on the flip side, in terms of the hustle, which is something you're very good at, and how much time you put into managing Surf Trash, not writing.
Yeah.
For the bands listening that have been around a year or two, they write good music, they're feeling a little stuck, like I said, and they've plateaued. How many hours would you be putting into the band a week, not including writing, rehearsing?
Okay, so take away writing, rehearsing, because I would probably write easily for an hour a day every day.
You do pump out a shitload of songs.
Yeah. I would be writing between an hour to a day every day.
Yeah.
Rehearsing, we get together between 1 to 3 times a week.
Really?
Yeah.
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 And I think that's a big thing. Whether it depends on what shows are coming up, we will always rehearse before shows, just because we move the set around a bit, keep things exciting. We want to be tight. We take it seriously.
I think that's one thing, and I want you to continue straight on that point, but just jumping, one thing people probably don't realise that I've noticed a lot from seeing you guys play live and in the studios, even though your music is very fun and somewhat you call loose, in terms of feel, you guys are very particular and you know what you want and how you want it to come out.
Yeah, maybe now, and that's just because we've been doing it a little while. Certainly not the case to begin with.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. Like, I think we are very particular in a good way.
Yeah.
And just want to be able to do the best job we can do, and create a fun experience and a great listening experience for people that are coming to shows. And we take that quite seriously. That's a big part of being a band or a live band. So anyway, rehearsing 1 to 3 times a week. Maybe like 2 of those sessions are rehearsing and 1 might be just writing and working on new stuff.
Yeah.
Taking all that away, I would say I would still easily be doing anywhere from 4 to 7 hours a day of stuff.
And what kind of things
4
does
days,
that entail?
5 days a week.
What kind of things is that entailing for the band?
Oh, absolutely. Everything from emailing to calls to setting up shows, talking to our booking agent, visas, all the fun stuff like that.
Organising recording.
Yeah, organising recording, logistics for touring, accounting, everything, like bouncing off everyone that works with us as well. Just literally chipping away day to day. It's like so many, you have to put on all these different helmets all the time. And
so if you add rehearsals, writing, and how much time you're doing, you are spending, you could comfortably say 5 to 6 hours a day on Surf Trash. So you're spending 40 hours a week on Surf Trash.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah. And so for those people listening, and you probably know lots of bands, you probably play with them. They're probably, bands you're playing with on festivals and supports for your gigs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Their music is great.
Yeah.
You could argue that for some of these bands, if you really dedicated a year or two where you jumped up and spent 30, 40 hours a week on the band, you would probably notice a pretty significant jump.
You would, whether you're noticing a jump for yourselves or outside, it's more for you. It's like if you're not feeling like for people that are like between the first year or two into something, if you really do dedicate that time and effort, and you will notice it yourself first, obviously, but I think you would definitely notice the difference, and we have as well. We haven't always spent that much time on the group. We've always been very consistent and persistent, but we're definitely noticing a difference with the love and attention that we are putting into the project.
Yeah.
And it's not because part of it is we have to if we want to keep achieving what we're after, or we're doing it for ourselves almost. You set yourself a standard and you strive for that standard. Like outside of rehearsing, everyone's still picking up instruments and writing in their own time, as well as when we're together. It's like it's everyone's personal kind of growth as well. I think it's very important. But when I actually am thinking about the hours and the time, it's like
there are sacrifices that you would have made. I know it doesn't feel like a sacrifice because you love it, but I'm sure there are times you could have been, you could have been spent those 40 hours a week doing other things that are easier and more chilled or less stressful. Like, do you ever get stressed?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
And you're a pretty relaxed person.
Well, yeah, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I definitely feel anxious and stressed quite frequently, but I've come to be more comfortable with that, and it's because I'm doing things that make me uncomfortable and putting a lot on the line and putting a lot of dedication and time, and obviously I'm going to feel tired and stressed, but I try to turn it into a positive and remind myself like why I'm doing certain things. Like, so yeah, you'd be lying to yourself if you don't feel that on a day, like not a day-to-day basis, but frequently. Like there could be a weekly thing where I'm feeling stressed. It depends on the kind of work, like obviously the logistics of organising overseas touring and touring here and setting things up. It's not a peaceful
no
peaceful mindset or like a relaxing thing to do. But I get a lot of enjoyment and satisfaction out being able to sit down and chip away at things and have something done like that, and I'm like, sweet, next thing, let's go, like let's get that done. And probably the biggest thing, it's so simple, but the biggest thing I've learned in terms of managing a band and just management in general is writing everything down that you really need, like just always being accountable and chipping away at things and not leaving things to the last minute. And it's such a simple thing, but that has been the biggest, like that might be completely obvious to one person, but it's so easy to like let things boil up and up until it feels like you just can't get any of what you need to get done. Chipping away at things and at least making a start and seeing little things be done, that mindset and seeing that all the time is so important for me anyway. Like is just always at least getting stuff, like something done, you know. That's
the consistent small efforts.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In all areas of your life, but in terms of like management, it's such an important thing. And that might sound completely obvious, like no shit, like, but it can be overlooked, and it's so easy to procrastinate. I'll be like, oh, I've got to do visas, let's go write some songs. Like,
let's play some Switch.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so easy to procrastinate and know that you've got particular things you need done, and you go and do other things instead because you're feeling guilty about. I've learnt to be like, okay, no, I need to get and seeing that work. Like, I've been more stoked on just seeing, chipping away at things. And
the more you do that and the more you see it work, the easier it is to motivate you to do it next time.
Exactly right.
Past,
I would say that's probably the most important thing it's not figured out, but have seen anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
You trust in that process that you're like, I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to do it because I know once I chip away and I keep doing this, it will happen.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a big believer, like that consistent small effort thing, whether it's I'm just going to spend an hour writing a song because I know we need to get another album starting to go. We need to rehearse to get a little bit tighter. We need to start chipping away at our American tour planning or whatever.
Right. It's never, I think I'm never like I need to write, so I just always find myself writing. But other things 100%, like writing, especially when I am juggling all the different things with the group, is like writing is the one thing that feels worlds away from everything else. And that's why I love it so much, and it's such a good way to, you know, it's not about getting good at writing, but enjoying that process of writing is, and it's worlds away from everything else I do. I really value and love that. Like, I think it's hard to say what I like the most about being in a band or managing, but like I think writing for me and songwriting is probably my favourite.
Yes.
Purely just because it feels worlds away from everything else.
If you had to be either like the Beatles that only ended up recording records later in time, or being a band that you don't really care about releasing any new music anymore, but just want to tour and play amazing shows, which if you had to pick one,
I'd probably be releasing music just because of the high volume that I write and the others write. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But then it's like, what fun is it when you can't go out and play that in front of people?
That's true.
So, yeah.
It's
a revolving door, isn't it? We've just spent like a month touring and everyone just wanted to come in and bunker in here and record. And then I know then that will change again straight away.
One more thing on that point of how you said, you do feel stressed. What is the thing that probably brings you the most stress or nerves, or underlining it, what's the biggest? Yeah, what is the thing that causes you the most stress in relation to the band?
Whew, that's a really good question. I don't think it's just one thing. It's like, I think when you're doing so much yourself, it's just self-doubt, because like it's just you. Like a lot of the management role is a quite a grueling and lonely role. Like a lot is down to you and your time and your effort and your dedication. And I suppose just like self-doubt, and you're like, oh, I should know this, and it's like you got to get out of that frame of mind about having it all together. And I suppose, yeah, it's a really good question, because I don't think it's just one thing. I suppose self-doubt is a big one, and I've learnt to, obviously, like, it's so easy to care about what others think about the music or things like that as well. So I suppose just worrying in general is such an easy thing to do when you've got everything riding on what you're doing, and when you put up so much time and dedication. So when you do have setbacks, it's like you really do feel that in a way. So, but yeah, I couldn't.
Did you say you've learnt to? Did you just kind of reference in that you have learnt to not listen to that self-doubt, or like accept that it's just going to be there?
I think just accepting that it's going to be there, and that's normal.
Yeah.
And it's just because of how much you're really putting in, and you've got yourself to lean on a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like, you can, yeah. If you're going to have all this control and that kind of thing, and a lot of things ride on you, and there's a lot of pressure, and you're bouncing off so many people, it's like you got to accept that you're going to have that part of your brain telling you that.
one more thing on the music business side of thing too, because I do find it fascinating.
If you can call it that. It's like, I find it fascinating.
Well, using the word business.
Yeah, and just, it's fascinating that you can call it that.
I have a lot of bands that think they'll make it when they're signed and stuff. And I was talking to some band, I'm not going to mention names, but I was talking to some bands at the Rolling Sets gig the other day where we were at, that are, roughly a similar size to you, that are signed on big labels, and you guys are independent and have had, you've had labels hit you up before.
Sure.
Can you just talk a bit more, because this is, I guess, for the music bands that are listening specifically, but let's dispel the myth on record labels for a second, because I don't think having a record label means you've made it at all.
No.
Because I was talking to some of those bands that were like very much regretting signing.
You're right.
And then you guys are there. We're now, we're here in the studio about to do album 2. Mm-hmm. Totally independent, and you're there at the same point.
Right.
What do you feel about, why did you knock back labels? I know the labels that have talked to you before.
Yeah.
And they're not small.
Yeah. Well, I think a few reasons. I think what we like about this project would be lost if a label came on board in a way. We wouldn't be able to fund overseas touring, which is a huge one for us. I feel like we just definitely wouldn't be in the position to be touring overseas as much as we have, and
because they would have taken their cut.
Right. And even outside of that, like, I think it's purely just been like people we've spoken to over the course of 5 to 6 years, the positions that they end up being in, that they're in currently, and just that not being something we want to happen to us as well. It's not like, you can never say never, like, will we ever sign to a label? Who knows? We're just always thinking right now, and right now we're really happy with what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
But I think a big thing as well is, like, we've worked so hard to get where we are and to keep doing what we're doing, that I feel like it may be a step backwards in a way. Like, if we, and I think obviously a lot of things are harder to do without being signed, but being able to do them not being signed is something that, it's like it's a good pat on the back to be able to achieve things you want to do without being signed. And like, I think, it's just been over the course, like we've had people want to work with us, and that's really cool. And it's nice to have those conversations and like not just flat out say no and that kind of thing, but we're just happy with how, like, it's as simple as things. We're just happy with how we've got things at the moment. And we've spoken to a lot of friends and other people that are in the industry here and overseas. And I think a big thing is we've got mates over in the States and that as well that aren't signed, that are just killing it.
A sunroom signed?
No.
Wow.
No.
And they were doing, 800 cap rooms around the country?
Bigger. Way bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not signed. They don't work jobs.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, for people listening, a record label, if you sign, they've got control of what you release, how you release it, when you release it. All they really are is funding your project. If you can fund your recording and then pay for your own PR,
that's the thing. We've been able to do that. So why would we change that? And not everyone's situation is going to be the same, obviously. There might be artists that will really benefit from being signed, and there'll be artists that aren't.
Yeah. Just
in our scenario and our situation at the moment, we've been able to fund touring overseas and nationally, been able to fund to do records.
Yeah.
Being self-sufficient and self-funded is, we're really grateful that we're able to do that. It's not easy. And we don't take it for granted at all, which is why we wouldn't change it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's
there is a lot of myths around record labels and that kind of thing. And I think we've been too busy focusing on what we're doing to, I don't know, like go down that road just yet, to be honest.
And that was the biggest reason I wanted to get you on too, was, not only your artistry is going really on as a band, but you guys are currently one of the few examples that I work with that are making their own noise. You are attracting great things into your lives with the band.
Yep.
And you have a great booking agent, which, who I know well. But apart from that, you are doing everything yourself, and you're throwing everything into it, the time, the effort. Every time, we talk all the time about you guys in the band, you and I personally.
Yep.
It is everything you guys live and breathe.
Right.
And you've been doing that consistently for the last 6 to 7 years, which is now coming to this beautiful point of some really successful, first trips overseas, really successful first album.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the final thing before, we've got to start writing our album today. But what is on the horizon for Surf Trash next, or what's ahead for you guys that you hope?
Well, more music. We're sitting on like a lot of music at the moment, and obviously the process from like writing to recording to releasing the first record that we've done together, that was a really a fun experience, but it's you learn a lot as well. Like that's the first one we've done, and we've never had to do that before. There's so much that goes into it, and it felt great to really just have our first full length kind of record and project out there. And all it wanted, and straight away I was like, all right, let's do the next. Like, it's like that was not that was easy, but it was like, we can do that. Let's do it again. Let's go. Like,
you've got about 30 songs ready for this next record. We're going to cull down, right?
Probably more. It's great. We're writing more collaboratively now, more than ever. Like, we've always jammed in a room and fleshed out songs live, but everyone goes away and writes their own things as well. We've got all these different scenarios of writing, which is great. I'm writing by myself. Everyone's writing by themselves. Jacko is writing heaps of songs as well. Same with Nick. Everybody's really contributing, and then it's like all these songs come from all these different places, and like who knows how many of them are really good, but that's not what we're worried about. Every idea is a good idea until it's not, and we will pursue every idea that feels good and that we have, and it's like those songs are valuable to us.
Yes.
Hold on to them, and instead of going, oh, let's get rid of that and get this, like, well, let's piece these ones together and let's put you don't throw away those ideas.
Yep.
I was saying to you just before, just recently when we've been on the road the last month, everyone's done a big deep dive into the archives of Surf Trash and start finding things that we're reworking from 4 or 5 years ago. There's stuff that will just pop up just a few days ago. It's like managing all of it and bringing it all together is important. But yeah, hoping, we're gonna, there's another album there ready to go. So just releasing more music, putting out another album, showing the variety and the stuff that inspires us. Like this next record's completely different to the last.
Yeah.
Which you know.
Yep.
Yeah. Just to keep you on your toes. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And yeah, so releasing music. We're touring over in the UK and Europe in February for the first time. I haven't been over there. We haven't played shows over there, so that's obviously really exciting. Hoping to get back over to the States as well, which I think is going to be happening. Just in the middle of all the fun stuff that is involved for that, like visas and just the logistics of that. So got to get our visas renewed and all that fun stuff. So yeah, just playing to new people in new places like that is purely the best, like the most fun, I think, for all of us, and getting to see places, and that inspires to write, and then you write about those experiences. I think that's why we're writing so many songs, is the last like 12 to 18 months we've experienced and enjoyed so much in our lives that it's there's a lot to write about, not just from our own perspective but just the world's perspective. There's so much to write about, and I've soaked up so much being on the road as well, and meeting people and seeing places, good and bad. Like there's a lot to write about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think being on the road actually contributes to how much you write as well.
It helps inspire you.
Yeah, if you're pulling from there, it does for us anyway.
Yeah.
Like the song we're working on at the moment with you, that's on the album, was only, we wrote like pretty much 12 months ago while we were over in America, and it was very much just about the time we were having then, and then we just workshopped it and have chipped away and played it for 12 months straight, and now it's finally coming to life. Like that process is a fun one to bring it to the forefront. But yeah, just playing more shows and recording more music. That's all there is to it. That's simply what we'd like to do is keep releasing albums and playing to as many people as we can. That's it. That's all that I think we're wanting to do. Yeah.
I think that's it.
There's nothing much to it.
Keeping it simple, doing what you love, working hard at it consistently, trying to minimize the head noise of external pressures and your own internal self-doubt.
Which is not easy to do, but that's the goal. That's what,
And I think that formula, along with writing good music, is what is bringing you the success and the rise that you're having. And I look forward to seeing, well, obviously hearing it firsthand right now in the studio, but what this new project and these tours bring for you guys. And I hope for anyone listening that they got some great takeaways today about.
I hope so. I hope I wasn't just like umming and ahhing and rambling it. Like I
think showing people how much actually goes on behind the scenes, and it's not just luck. It is that consistent work. You've been doing it a long time. You do what you love and what feels right.
Yeah. You just can't sit around and wait for things to come to you. You gotta go after it. You gotta, as cliche as like as funny as that sounds, it's a matter of just putting things into action and really going after things and working hard, as well as trying to enjoy yourself along the way. One thing I will say, because I really like this idea that I try think about quite frequently is like the metric of success and that kind of thing as well. Is an artist, they're creatively the artists at their creative peak might not necessarily be at their most successful or commercial peak. Those two things are completely separate.
Yep.
So whether or not we're having momentum or success in one realm, we might creatively not be at our peak or songwriter. Like those things are completely separate, and and you got to remember that as well.
Yep.
So people might think you're at a certain thing here, and then you might not be at your creative peak either. Those two things are separate. And you might not be commended for that success at that time. Yep. If that makes sense. You might not be congratulated and shown all this love and appreciation at your creative peak.
Yep.
No one will know who you are. Maybe that could be a possibility.
That's actually when you might be writing your best stuff.
Who knows? Yeah. Those two things are separate, and just remember that. And I think I try constantly remind myself of those two things.
I think I love the with your approach is working really hard, but at the same time, like I just said, what's next for the band? It's like, but keeping it simple still. It's like, I want to write good music and play good shows, and I want to invest time in my band, and I'm going to fucking work hard doing that.
That's all there is.
And
there's not really any other plan. Like, as much as I am planning and doing things, that's the plan.
The actual big vision is quite simple.
It's just like two things.
Yeah. Good music, good shows.
Yeah.
And everything else is all the millions of hard little things you do to get there.
Yeah, and just enjoying what we're doing. We all of us never expected to be doing this ever, or even expect to be playing in a band all these years later, or just playing in a band altogether. So every day we are honestly so grateful for what we get to do and get to experience. Like, this is something I've wanted to do, I think, very early on in my life. So being able to do it, I'm happy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the big thing.
Super happy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's we should probably get the other boys downstairs, down upstairs, and we'll keep working on this next single that'll be on the next record. This will probably come out in February while you're in Europe. Mm-hmm. For anyone listening that hasn't heard of you guys, what's your main outlet for social media to keep everyone up to date?
Well, Instagram, I suppose we're doing that.
And what's your Instagram for everyone?
It's just Surf Trash.
Can't be.
Nice.
See, simple.
Yeah,
simple.
I suppose we're putting stuff up there. That's where we're putting stuff. Done. Yeah, and if not, you can listen wherever you want to. Wherever people are listening.
Awesome.
They'll figure it out.
Good luck in the UK and Europe. That's going to be huge.
Yep.
Another America trip I know is in the works.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're in the studio right now in the very early stages of album 2.
Yeah, one thing at a time.
Another
day, another couple of hours of pulling guitar tones.
Let's do that.
Let's do that this morning.
Nice.
Yeah. Then we'll worry about the other stuff. Awesome.
Thanks, bro. That was sick.
Yeah. I was stoked.